What's up, guys? I get a lot of questions about redirects, so I wanted to make this video and run through the redirects that I use. I'm going to start with the most basic and work up from there to some removable redirects or retrievable redirects. So first thing off, I got my tie-in point I worked out. Most basic is a natural crotch. I'm going to lanyard in using this play set on this rain day. I lanyard in, I got to slack my system, find a suitable union. One of the downsides is you need an appropriate branch union to use. Pass my system through the branch union, reconnect, and I want to, as with any time, I want to reload this before taking off my lanyard. So one of the big benefits to this, and I use it a lot when coming out of the tree, my last section, if I break a tree into columns or work from the top down, I'll use this on my last column so that I don't have any gear that I need to retrieve or go back up and get or retrieve from the ground. So the advantages being that it requires no extra gear. Disadvantages is that you're limited on your options and it's really basic. So moving up from there, again, we always lanyard in before setting a redirect. I use a sling for a lot of redirects. I prefer the Sterling chain reactor because each loop is rated, and being that there's a lot of loops, it's very adjustable. So with this one, I'll set it up and girth hitch the sling off, meaning it's not retrievable. It's one of the downsides of this redirect. I can either just pass the rope through, really quick and simple. I don't have to disconnect and send it through a union. The downside is that this can increase forces, especially if I'm going to be working out to the side. I can put a lot of side force on this branch union. So one of the ways I get away from that is by creating a munter's hitch. And what this does is this will self-adjust and tension, or I can pre-tension it, and it'll share forces with the tie-in point and this limb. It's like creating friction with a porter wrap or something like that. So with an arborist rope that's easily knottable, I use a munter's hitch. If I'm going to be using static ropes, they don't bend as easy. I can create the same sort of idea by just taking 2 or 3 wraps around the carabiner. Again, this just creates friction here, and I call this a dynamic redirect in that it shares loads between the tie-in point and this redirect point. If I was to take a fall, it can still self-adjust, and I really highly recommend these type. So we could go to more of a static redirect from there. All of these, the downside being is that you have to go back up and retrieve it because this is girth hitched. So if I was to make a static redirect, I can put in a clove hitch. One of the downsides is that you're basically creating a new tie-in point. Now I could adjust this myself to kind of create some sort of shared load, but most of the time you're not going to be able to take it all out. That's why I prefer the munter's hitch or just taking multiple wraps around the carabiner. So advancing from there, we move into retrievable redirects. Sometimes this is ideal if you have one section, but then you can plan your route where you can get out into another section and you just want to remove it while it's still in the tree or from the ground. So I got 2 that I've been using for this. One was showed to me by Mike Skillen. It involves a ring on the end and a carabiner, and then you'll need an extra carabiner as well. So what you do is you pass it over the union that you're looking for, take a bite of rope, pass it through the ring. With an extra carabiner, I'll clip it in. And in this carabiner, again, I can adjust it. It goes on the top side. So I can pull some of this out and it will self-adjust to some degree, but it has to be a little bit more of a suitable redirect point. It's a little bit harder to get it to tension both sides. So this would work in itself, but then it's not retrievable. If I want to make it retrievable, I need to use the tail of my line or a secondary line, and I'll tie off in here. So I'll go ahead and tie off with my bunt line hitch. Set it up to be easily retrieved. So this one I can sit into before I do it. This one becomes retrievable. I need 3 times the amount of rope to retrieve it. So if I do some work, I come down, I lanyard in, I want to retrieve it. I'm going to slack my system and pull down on the tail. See how you need 3 times the amount of rope to get it back to you? I'll unclip this. This is going to allow the bite to come out and slide through that that ring. And then the beaner will keep it on your line and it'll slide all back down to you. This could be retrieved when in the tree yet or like after a climb. So that one works really well, but the downside being that you need 3 times the amount of rope. And sometimes I've gotten into myself in trouble because I haven't, and then I have to go back up and retrieve it anyway. So there's one final one that I was just showed by Otis Sisk, and I think it's a really cool idea. So I'll show it to you guys, and you can give me some feedback on it as well. But this one, you need a prusik loop. I use a webbing strap. That's my foot loop in my Ascent system. A longer like foot locking cord would work as well, and the bigger the diameter, as long as it bites correctly, will make it release easier. So with this one, I'm going to take the tail of my line and pass it over the desired union. I can either run it all the way down or just a little bit, as long as there's enough tail underneath. And I want to set this up like a foot locking prusik. I use an English prusik to do it, that I typically use for foot locking. I haven't tried any others, but in theory they would work as long as they lock down well. I do a 4 wrap just to make sure it grabs really well, and then it also shortens up the carabiner. So what I did here is I did a 4 wrap, and we have to keep a 5-in-1 rule. If this limb's 5 inches in diameter, if this is 1 inch in diameter, we got to stay 5 inches down. So I'm going to set this knot and clip into it, and I could use like a Munters, but then it's not going to retrieve. So the way this one works, here I'll de-lanyard so you can see it, is it's using the tail of my line to create the redirect with this sling. And I can go out and it's going to hold fast. To retrieve it, I'm going to slack my system, lanyard in again, and start pulling on the tail. It's going to release my prusik to some degree till it pulls up, and that's going to spread the prusik out, and my tail will fall off, and again it'll slide back down the line to me. So this is a really neat one that doesn't require a lot of equipment. I use the stuff I have with me. The other advantage is I don't need that 3-to-1, 3 times the amount of rope to retrieve it. It's just the amount of rope as long as I go down. You'll be in a continuous loop, so as soon as you run out of rope, you can still retrieve it. The other nice thing about it is that it's a prusik. It locks on fast, and it'll be good like that throughout the climb. The only way to be able to retrieve it is to slack the whole system. Now in this, if we want to go super safe, it would take a longer tail, but if I plan my route appropriately, I could set this, use the same concepts that we use in foot locking, which I don't think is fully necessary because it's not my primary tie-in point, it's just a redirect. But I'll show you what I mean, is that we can back it up. 3, 4, tie, dress, set. Now if I wanted to back it up, I could put slip knots in each one. So that way there's no concern over the prusik sliding down at all, if we have that. Now again, the tail would have to be down to where you can reach it, because to be able to retrieve it, I'm going to have to be able to slack at least the one that the tail's on. And then I could, again, slack the system, pull it up, the prusik widens, tail pulls through, and it all slides back down to me. So give me some feedback. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find them useful as well. Thanks.